Hello all, welcome back to a wee bit of wildlife on a Wednesday. My name is Chris, the head ranger at Antrim Castle Gardens. If this is the first of these wee videos that we're doing that you've watched, but I thought we'd do something a wee bit different today. So I've come back up to Antrim Castle Gardens. It's lovely weather. I'm trying to stay as far as I can away from everybody else, and I've washed my hands at least 10 times today. I hope you lot are doing the same. But you remember a few weeks ago we did a mini beast hunt around my garden, and we found quite a lot of mini beasts under stones, under leaves, under wee stumps, sort of moist areas, shaded areas, cool areas around the garden. And that's sort of what we associate a mini beast hunt with, are these sort of areas on land. I'm on the banks of the river today. Behind me you can probably hear the water running, and I think we'll do something a wee bit different because we don't often look for mini beasts below the water. So I think that's what we'll do today. Is I'm going to head down into the river and do what we call a kick test, and that's to test for little mini beasts, aquatic invertebrates, to see how many of them we get and how many of which species we get. Now, they're very good indicators of water quality. So the slightest little bit of pollution in a river will wipe out certain types or certain species of invertebrates, and those are the more sensitive ones. So those are the very important ones in a river. But it's these little invertebrates that form the baseline of life in the river, I suppose. You know, they feed all the fish, they feed birds and things, and often on a nice warm day like today, when you look over the water, you'll see massive amounts of flying insects that have just hatched. Now, just the same way a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, so these little insects have their nymphal stage and larval stages under the water. Some of them live 2 or 3 years under the water, and then eventually on a nice warm summer's day, usually they'll hatch and become a flying insect. So just the same way the butterfly, which is the juvenile stage of a caterpillar, the juvenile stage of a butterfly, undergoes a complete transformation to its adult stage. It looks nothing like it does as a baby. So these are much the same, these aquatic invertebrates. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to get into the river. I'll do a wee kick test. So that's 3 minutes long. And what I use, I've got some of the equipment that I use over here, but what I'll use is this very long net, and I will stand upstream and I'll face the net towards me on the bottom, and I'll rummage around with my feet and kick my feet around, and all of the sediment and a lot of the little mini beasts, a lot of the invertebrates that we'll get trapped in the net. Okay, so we have to do that for 3 minutes. That's the standard length of time, and then I'll tip the contents of this net out into a white tray, and we'll have a look at what we found. There's a score sheet that you can enter the different invertebrates into, and it'll give us a pretty good indication of what health the river's in. So join me again for in a little while for the second part to this wee video, when we have a look at the invertebrates that we found. Alright, so that's me. I've been in the river kicking around for a few minutes, and I've managed to catch quite a lot of little insects, or invertebrates should I say. And here's the tray, and I don't know if you can see inside the tray just how much movement there is flitting about in there, but let me show you this little section over here. See all those wee invertebrates? So it's absolutely, I mean, under the water is alive with insects, or alive with mini beasts, and it's things that we wouldn't really look for in your average mini beast hunt on land, you know, around your gardens, because as I say, for a lot of these species you need water, and running water at that. But you can do pond dipping and things as well, but I just thought I'd show you how much life is under the water, under the wee rocks and things in the current. As I say, these invertebrates will spend the vast majority of their lives in this nymphal or larvae stage. Alright, now what I've done is I've got a little tray off to the side over here, and I've managed to catch a few of the invertebrates, a wee selection of them, and we'll go through them and see which ones are which, see if we can identify them. And then I've got a score sheet over here as well, which I will fill out afterwards. I'm not going to go into all the details of the score sheet with you, but you score that score sheet according to which of these insects you find, or which of these invertebrates you find. They each have their own score, how many of them you find, and it gives you a very good indication on the clarity or the quality of the water to see if there's any pollution around, you know. Okay, so I'll go through this little selection that I've managed to put aside for you over here, and we'll see if we can identify any of them. Right, so in our wee selection over here, I'll start with the ones that are probably the most obvious. And if you look in this little section, you'll see they look like little shrimps here, and that's exactly what they are. That's called the gammarous shrimp, or the freshwater shrimp. They don't hatch into flying insects at all. They spend their whole lives in the river, okay, and under the water. So those are gammarous shrimps. See if we can get a little bit closer to them there. They're all clustered up in the corner. Now I'll release all of these back into the river. This is just to show you. Okay. The next ones up are nymphs of what we call up-winged flies, or type of up-winged fly, and these are stone clingers. They belong to a family called Heptagenids, and they got three lovely tails on them there, see, and they're quite flat because they wriggle under the stones and cling on with those strong legs of theirs, and they normally spend about 2 years as nymphs. And then one day, on a nice summer's day, they'll wriggle up to the top of the water or crawl up. Different species will do different things, and their nymphal shuck, that covering, the skin of theirs, there's a few more in this container, or in this section over here. That nymphal skin of theirs splits, and they actually crawl out of it, and then they have wings. So they have an incomplete life cycle in that they don't have a pupae stage. They don't pupate. Alright, some of these wee invertebrates do have a complete life cycle and do pupate. You know the way a butterfly forms a chrysalis? That's pupating. So a butterfly has a complete life cycle. A lot of these don't. Okay. But let me show you. These are nymphal shucks. Now, if you look, those are the skins that the olives or the upwing flies have actually crawled out of and left behind. Alright, so those are heptagenid nymphal skins, or the shucks. And this is what they leave behind in the water when the flying insect eventually emerges, crawls out of its nymphal skin and flies off. Okay. Now, one of the insects that do, or one of these invertebrates that do have a complete life cycle is this little one over here. See how it's wriggling around. See, it's got the green head there, and that's a caddisfly larvae, also called a sedge. And there's quite a few different types of sedges, and they all sort of look like moths when they're adults. They look like moths with flattened wings, or their wings that folded over their backs like a tent. So they look like a skinny moth. But for the first year or two of their lives, they spend under the water as little larvae, like that one we can see wriggling around there. Alright? But they have a complete life cycle. So that little larvae will eventually pupate. Now, some will build a little covering with rocks that they can pupate inside, and some others don't. And I've managed to find a pupae here. Let's see where it is. There it is. And if you look very carefully with the sun shining on it, you can see the pupa inside its wee pupal case. See it there? It's actually moving a wee bit as well. Now, that's the pupa casing around what I've just shown you, that caddisfly larvae. And the transformation, the change from youngster, from larvae to adult or to pupa, will happen inside this casing, and eventually the flying insect, as I say, they look like skinny moths with their wings folded over their backs, will come out of that casing and fly around. Okay, So that's a complete life cycle in the caddisfly. So very, very interesting. Also in the middle over here, a leech. It's a freshwater leech. You see how it stretches itself out and then grabs on and then pulls itself up, so it kind of retracts and contracts, and that's how they move about in the rocks and things. Yeah, so like a shapeshifter, really changes its shape loads, and climb anywhere it wants to. That's actually escaping. And then in this container over here we have some more up-winged flies, but these are what we call olive nymphs. So these are nymphs of the large dark olive, or other olives. They're smaller than those heptagenids that we saw. Okay, they're a wee bit skinnier as well, but they also grow into or eventually hatch into flying insects that you'll see on a nice warm summer's day flying over the river, called olives. And they all belong to a group called Ephemeroptera, which means up-winged flies. And they look like little angels when they fly, with their wings out to the side or outstretched, and these long tails dangling below them. Looks like an angel's dress. So if you see little insects really fluttering, they fly. They're not very strong flyers, and they fly with quite a fluttering motion, and they look like miniature little angels. That'll probably be the olives. Either the olives or those heptagenids will also turn into or hatch into up-winged flies. Okay, so a good selection of wee invertebrates that we found in the river today. I'm going to go and complete this card detailing how many of each we found. I've done a very rough sort of count, and we'll get a very good indication on the quality of the 6 Mile Water River at present, which is great, because I don't think it's been done all that much now with lockdown. Anyway, I hope you all stay safe. I just thought I'd show you something different, that we can actually look for mini beasts in and around the rocks like this around the river. Alright, so remember to wash your hands and stay 2 meters apart when you go out, if you do go out. No unnecessary journeys, and hopefully life returns to normal soon and you can come visit us at Antrim Castle Gardens. Take care, bye.